Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Bearcat Chats. We have a packed house today as we get ready for Research Days. We are highlighting the B Minds team and their terrific research. Let me introduce everybody, and then we will get into finding out the great work that they're doing. Michael Colabelli is the funding chair. Gerard Dempsey is the lead research assistant, as is Casey McKenna. Tharsana Kumarasivam is the communications chair. Rachel Malzahn is the ongoing education chair. Lindsay Moser is the social media chair. And Alexandra Pritzker is the presentation chair. They are led by Lena Begdesh, who many of you know, a professor here at Binghamton University. Thank you all for joining me. You are a well-organized group. Tharsana, let's start with you. Tell us about the research that you're doing and how this all came together.
Thank you so much for having us. So our research group focuses on the effect of our diet on mental health and distress and stress itself. So what we do, we have a survey that went out and it surveyed adults 18 plus on their different dietary habits. And right now we're in the process of creating 2 different research posters for Research Days, one of them being on vegetable consumption and mental distress, and the other being on breakfast and how that may improve mental health.
And Casey, you know, eating and stress, I mean, I think this has gotten a lot more attention during the pandemic, how correlated they seem, especially when we're at home so much. Tell me about what you guys have found.
So we looked at so many different variables regarding the diet and lifestyle habits too, and we found quite a bit. I think one finding that was really interesting to me was what we found about fast food. So we found that fast food consumption was positively correlated with stress. So the more fast food that you eat, the higher stress levels we found among our participants. We think that might be due to the fact that a diet high in fast food is very low in nutrients, so you're not really fueling your body well. But more than that, you're increasing inflammation in your body, which can cause issues with your brain chemicals and increase stress overall.
Oh, so the fast food is creating the stress. Is there a correlation? I didn't know if there was a correlation eating fast food or junk food, for lack of a better term, to deal with stress. Is there that connection?
From what I've read in the past, I believe that when you are stressed, you tend to have poor eating habits. But what I think makes our research unique is we're trying to look at it through a lens of how your diet may influence your stress rather than how your stress might influence your diet. I think that's an area of research that's pretty underdeveloped right now. So we're really trying to contribute there.
Understood. Lindsay, you were nodding your head. Certainly, that is a different way of looking at it.
Yes, I think that, like Casey said, a lot of the research done in the past is definitely looking at it the other way around. So our research is really new and we have a lot to contribute to the scientific community. I know my group in particular for Research Days, we are submitting an abstract that's looking at how breakfast relates to stress and mental distress, which I think is super important, especially for college students who often neglect breakfast and don't really prioritize it as a meal. So what we're finding is that eating breakfast and breakfast foods in general have a negative correlation with both mental distress and perceived stress, which could definitely be something that could benefit our peers once we start to share our findings.
And let's go down to Michael. What on the breakfast front should people? Are there specific suggestions that you guys have found in terms of what people should be eating?
Yeah, so one big breakfast food that we've been researching is whole grains. So we could find whole grains in like cereals, for example, or like whole wheat toast. And we found a similar correlation with breakfast that eating whole grain foods has a negative correlation with perceived stress and mental distress. So I guess our message is eat breakfast and it might help with the way you feel stress and like decreasing depressive and anxiety symptoms, and also throw in some whole grains as well, because that should also help.
Gerard, I always thought, you know, when I'm eating breakfast, it's like, where can I get some protein? You know, where can I find that energy for the day? Is that something that's in the mix too?
Yeah, protein definitely is in play with there, because when you have a good breakfast, you want to have a kind of all-encompassing meal, because you want to have a relatively even spread of the macronutrients, and you want to not focus too heavily on a particular one. But protein is good, is that it's a lasting fuel source for the day. So it's definitely something you want to include in a healthy breakfast for sure.
And Alex, and we'll get to you, Lena, in a moment. Tell me your role in this research.
So I'm the leader in presentation planning, and I work to develop different presentation ideas and subsequently the content for those presentations. So right now we're working on an introductory presentation, which is super important because we want it to just establish a background for understanding our whole research on the connection between diet and stress. So in this presentation, we introduce concepts like what is stress, the different food groups, amino acids, neurotransmitters. I think the goal with this presentation and what we're trying to focus on is that we're taking seemingly complicated scientific concepts and we're trying to make them relatable and understandable to our audience, which I think is super important.
And Lena, seems like everyone really works well together. Tell me about the process of putting this sort of group together and what it means for research at the university.
So basically, the idea behind having what I call it research and outreach program group is basically to give students several opportunities to do research and build several skills. And the idea of starting ropes in my career is for many years I had students who asked for research experiences, and I would try to give everyone an opportunity, but I got to a point where, and I don't say no to students, so I got to a point where I felt like I'm overwhelmed and I'm not giving the students the right opportunity because they come, I put them on a project and then they leave. So I was thinking, what can I do to first build skills and also build teamwork? And I got this idea. I started another a group, the Be Smart. You probably heard about the Be Smart. So now the Be Smart is training their fourth generation of researchers. So when Casey and Gerard independently came and asked me for a research experience, I thought to myself, I can start my second row. And I put them on a project they started, and I told them, your next step would be to recruit a research assistant and train them. And they have been doing a fantastic job. I'm so proud of them, and I feel like all my work had flourished into an excellent group of researchers.
Rachel, last but I want to weave you in. What have you gotten out of this experience that's going to help you, for your career path?
I've gotten so much out of this experience that honestly, I didn't even think that I would get going into it. I'm a senior, so I'm graduating in a few weeks. And I was definitely a little bit confused about what I want to do, what my career path. And honestly, this team has just showed me that I kind of need to be in the health field. It's just showed me how much passion I have for this subject, both nutrition and mental health. And I just know that in the future, I want to be doing something that I'm so passionate about like this, and health and wellness seems to be the area that I just keep moving towards.
Wow, that's so cool. And excited for where this could take you. Casey, as Lena mentioned, you were sort of at the forefront of this. What is it like to really see something from scratch, started from scratch, and see it grow?
I just in general feel incredibly proud of not only like the whole team, but also of myself. I don't think a year ago when Lena gave me this opportunity to like start this team that it would end up where it is now. We currently have 2 different posters that we're going to present, as Tharsana mentioned, and I'm so proud of that. We've collected a ton of responses on our survey, and I've learned so many skills like on my own from a leadership perspective, but also just on a research perspective that I feel like I'm so much better prepared to go into the world because, for example, I want to be a doctor. So for the rest of my life, I'm going to be reading research articles. It is so important that I can understand that and have experience doing that myself. So overall, I'm so proud of this team and I'm excited to see where we keep going.
I also would like to add that Casey has submitted an abstract to one of the biggest national conferences on nutrition, and it was accepted. So she'll be presenting a poster there as well.
Well, congratulations, Casey. That's great. Tharsana, for you, you're at the head of the communications for all this. How do you publicize your efforts? What do you do to sort of get the word out about your findings?
So at first it just started with on-campus research. I looked for opportunities on campus and locally to educate our peers. And then it turned into more research about different conferences that we can apply to. Like we mentioned, Casey's going to go to the nutrition conference in June. So I'm looking for more conferences for our whole team to attend. One of them is the Council of Undergraduate Research, which takes place later in the fall. But that is something we're planning on doing over the summer and over break. And other outreach efforts is also starting on campus. Like we had mentioned before, Alex is working on a educational presentation. So part of our on-campus outreach does rely on that presentation and to kind of apply our knowledge and apply what we learn to our campus community. Because like we mentioned, it is really important to be aware of our diet and how it might affect our overall mental health and our well-being. So we just want to make our research more accessible and kind of disseminate our findings to our peers.
To add to that, if I may, I'm really looking forward to continuing to expand our outreach efforts. That's part of the team I'm very excited about. In particular, things like tabling, like next semester, when it's safe to do so, we're going to be doing stuff like that. Lindsay and Rachel, they run our Instagram and other social medias, and we're creating a strong base there, and they're putting out great content. It's 3 or 4 times a week they're posting, informational content, and it's all very important to us that it's scientifically backed, and we prepare our sources because there's so much misinformation out there. So we want to reach out to the campus community and the scientific community at large with accurate information and be a trusted source for people. So kind of developing that trust with the community now, and we're going to cash in on that later with the presentations and the tabling and just more and more outreach events as the team continues to grow.
And just to add on to that, our Instagram, me and Lindsay work very closely together on that. So our handle is @BingMinds on Instagram. We have about 200 plus followers right now. And some things that we're doing on there just to get our findings out. First off, we're just introducing our team members, who we are, so people can kind of understand who the people are behind this research. And we're also doing something that we call a Wellness Wednesday post. So it's kind of just a little tip for people to follow, just an easy thing, something to be mindful of that people can apply to their lives. It's very easy to understand because we realize that not everyone has a huge science background. Not everyone knows that much about nutrition. So it's just little tips to be mindful of. And we're also introducing basic nutrition concepts like macronutrients. What are they? Why do we need them? Why does our research matter, basically? So we just want to educate the public on what our research is about and how they can kind of apply it to their lives.
And I can jump in real quick. So I love how we have our social media page because out there on the internet, there's just so many misinformation going around, especially on Instagram. You'll see posts talking about random nutritional facts that are not really facts or just backed up by no research. So I feel like with our social media page, we actually spread information that's backed by research and you can trust it as true information.
I also wanted to add on that we are set to have a presentation during the Research Days week on April 28th. And this is where we are going to talk about the findings and the information on our social media and our research itself and kind of apply it to a more general public and inform others.
I think that our outreach efforts is something that I'm personally really excited about because it's a great way to educate our peers. It's really important to us to be able to share our findings with the scientific community and contribute to what is known right now. But I think it is equally important to us that we can share this information with our peers because not everyone is reading the same articles that we're reading. So we want to be able to share that with like a wider audience.
And I love the question that Rachel mentioned, because what it comes down to is why does this research matter, right? That's the crux of everything. And Lindsay and Alex, just to weave you in, when people ask you that, what would you tell them?
Personally, I would say this research matters just because, I mean, our diet is really everything. It's one of the few things we have complete control over. So I think it's super important to understand how our diet really has significant effects on us, effects on our stress levels. I think a lot of people, they think about eating healthy, eating not healthy, and they really think about it in terms of like maybe a physical standpoint or an appearance standpoint, but it goes so much deeper than that. And I think that this research could really make a significant difference for the lives of our peers if they pay attention to it and understand that there's more to the diet than just how you look. It's a lot to do with your mind, and that could really impact everything, how we do in school, our stress levels. So I think that what we're doing is definitely unique and definitely really important.
And just to add on to that, I think diet is something relatable on all levels, whether you're researching it like through a scientific perspective or even just your everyday life. So it's one of the scientific topics that can apply to anyone. And that's why, again, with the presentations, I think what we're trying to do is make it really understandable and relatable to the average person, because it's something that is applicable to everyone, whether you want to understand it on a complicated, deeper level, or just include, you know, some tweaks into your daily life that our social media page talks about.
And Lena, you know, when we did our eating awareness series with Jen Wegman's group, coming out of that, it created, well, more awareness for me, just in terms of, okay, just the connection and the choices we make on an everyday basis. And that's the long way of saying the pandemic has created just totally life-altering dynamics. How has that affected, you think, this research?
I think this is very timely for us because, you mentioned the pandemic. There was a recent poll by the American Psychological Association that showed that 61% of people have either lost weight or gained weight. Most of them have gained weight, and an average of 50 pounds. And when they assessed their stress level, most of them reported having at least one symptom of the stress. And people have reported losing their sleep or having changes in their sleep pattern. Some people resorted to drinking more alcohol to deal with the stress. So by us explaining, by the student explaining how the diet is impacting their stress, this is going to be so helpful, because people sometimes find comfort in food, but this kind of food is actually triggering more stress. So the way the research assistants are educating people is that telling them what you eat is going to impact your stress, and what you don't eat or the way you eat sometimes can help with your stress level.
And I'm just thinking, maybe Lindsay, you want to jump in as a social media chair, or Casey, it's not just from a physical standpoint. You might see someone, you go, wow, looks like they're doing great, but it's that stress that you don't see and the correlation of food and how it affects that.
Yeah, I think that's what makes our research so important, just because there's so much more to health than what you could see on the outside. And I think obviously you can't look at someone and know if they're stressed out or if their body's stressed out or what's going on in their mind. So what we're doing is really looking into that side of health. And on social media, we're trying to share some correlations that we found. In the future, we're going to start sharing our findings, just maybe simple correlations, like we found that eating more fish has a negative association with mental distress and perceived stress. So now students or our peers might be more aware to include fish in their diet, or nuts and flax seeds, which are other foods high in omega-3s and good for our stress levels.
And just to touch upon your point about protein is super important. In our breakfast study, we found that eggs had a negative correlation with mental distress. So definitely incorporating, certain foods into your diet or certain eating routines, such as making it a priority to eat breakfast, is super important and can help people.
I have to stop being lazy. I just don't want to take out the skillet. Anyway, that's not what this is about. Casey, you get the last word. You were at the forefront of starting this. What do we have to look forward to as we get ready for research days, and just anything you want to tell us that we might have missed about the group?
Yeah, I think our major future goals right now is we would love to put out a manuscript and hopefully publish in a journal our findings. We think they're really important, and this area of research is pretty under-researched right now. So we would really like to contribute to the scientific community in that way. Beyond that, though, we're really excited to do more on campus. As Dr. Bigdash mentioned, stress and eating are very related. We see high stress during a pandemic, but also students in general are very stressed. I think it's something we all know very well. So it's important to educate our peers on how they can make changes in their diet and could help their stress levels that way. We also look forward to recruiting more members in the future. We want to continue this team. Rachel and I are seniors right now, and we would really like to see more research assistants join our teams so that we can teach them what we've learned through our research experience and continue that way. We're also, like we've said before, looking forward to presenting at Research Days. We have 2 posters there. And like Dr. Bigdash mentioned, I'll be presenting at Nutrition Live Online 2021. So that's something I'm really looking forward to. And I just wanted to add, I just wanted to thank Dr. Bigdash again for giving us all this opportunity. She is the best mentor in the entire world. She is so willing to answer our questions and guide us. So I can't thank her enough for that.
Thank you, Casey.
Well, you all have a lot to be proud of, and I echo those sentiments. Dr. Bigdash, terrific work. To Casey McKenna, Michael Colabelli, Gerard Dempsey, Tharsana Kumarasivam, Rachel Malzahn, Lindsay Moser, and Alexandra Pritzker. Did I get everybody? I don't want to miss anybody. Congratulations on your research. We look forward to seeing it on Research Days and all the different projects that you have coming up. And great to have you on Bearcat Chats.